and welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. And on this episode, as you can probably tell, we're going to be talking about Captain America Civil War, full spoilers. Now, if you have not seen this particular movie, definitely go see it first, and then you could come back and watch this spoiler-rific episode, and we could have a discussion. Now, if you have not seen my non-spoiler-free episode, I'm going to go ahead and leave the links up there somewhere. So you want to go ahead and check that out first. And that was like right after I got out watching a movie. So I've actually had some time to actually think about the movie and what actually went on in this movie. Now, these are just my thoughts, and as you probably already can tell. And so if you're a really big-time fanboy or fangirl and you're going to get butthurt over this, then you probably shouldn't watch it. But for the most part, I got a lot of good things to say about this movie. So let's first start off with, can't even beat around the bush, is actually the action in this movie. I talked about it briefly in my non-spoiler free review, but, at the very beginning of the movie, when Captain America, Falcon, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, they do their thing as a team versus Crossbones, who is like on some type of mission. He's getting a bottle of blood. The action in those opening sequences was, in my opinion, pretty much better than all the action scenes in Batman versus Superman. Now, in a lot of this, I will be comparing it against that movie because of the simple fact that, number one, the storylines, at least the basic storylines, are very similar. Both were versus movies. Both of them were bringing in a lot of characters from other movies, or at least in the Batman vs. Superman, it was setting up for a big meetup. And also, the villain, they had their own, I would say, very personal reasons in doing what they were doing. However, the motivations were way different between what Lex Luthor was doing versus what Baron Zemo was doing here. And also, this was initially set up to be a clash of DC and Marvel. Initially, Batman vs. Superman was supposed to go head-to-head with Civil War. And so, and of course, Civil War just came out. So there will be some comparisons between that, so just to let you know ahead of time. And so, like I said, the very opening scenes with Crossbones was better than, in my opinion, all the action scenes in Batman vs. Superman. And I know that's saying a lot. And the reason is right from the get-go, you get a lot of sense of what these actual characters can do, and so you get to see every one of them utilize their powers. I was especially surprised with the way they utilized Falcon. I'm not a huge Falcon fan, and in Civil War, in Captain America Winter Soldier, you didn't really get to see a lot about, Sam, his abilities. But in this movie, right from the beginning, as he's knocking down these soldiers, along with the help of Scarlet Witch, it's just amazing to see how really good the Falcon is actually in this movie. And then also, you get to see more of Scarlet Witch, which is a really nice surprise because in Age of Ultron, you didn't really get to know the characters, especially her brother Quicksilver, which makes sense because he died, And also, you get more like action with Black Widow. She's just bad. She's just a badass in this movie where she's taking people down. And, Captain America. It sets it all up, and just talking about all of that, that is just the beginning of the movie. And it also sets up the whole story, which I really, really enjoyed, because here, initially, what you think is the reason for Captain America and his team going after Crossbones is not what really is happening, at least from Crossbones' motivation. In the end, he pretty much tries to bomb and kill Captain America and everybody around him, but yet Scarlet Witch saves that from happening, from killing not only Captain America, but also everybody else around. But at the same time, they kill a bunch of people in the building here in Africa, in Tunisia, if I remember correctly. And that pretty much sets up the whole story of the movie. Okay, and so it starts with action, and action is like just so prevalent, it's just so important in this movie, but it serves the movie really, really well, and the whole movie, even though it's over 2+ hours, I did not for a moment find it boring. Let's talk about some of these action set pieces. Okay, we had that one at the beginning, and then later on when we had the chase scene between Black Panther, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, that was awesome. It could have just been a very simple car chase scene, which was, basically also a Audi commercial, and it was something really exciting, and it was very fast paced. And then you move on to the other action scenes where there weren't big set pieces, were like the action scenes between Scarlet Witch and the Vision, where she just smashed him through like levels and levels of the Avengers building, or the one that everybody talks about, the airport scene where all of them were going together. That was definitely a spectacular scene. You could tell what everybody's doing. Everybody had their moment, from Ant-Man, from Black Panther, from War Machine to Spider-Man, of course, and Iron Man. Everything was meshed well together. Even to, obviously the final climactic battle between Iron Man, the Winter Soldier, and Captain America. It was all very exhilarating, and you really felt like there was a lot at stake, unlike Batman versus Superman, where you didn't really feel like there was a lot at stake, and it was just like fighting for the sake of fighting and a lot of special effects, but you didn't really get a sense of, why they were fighting, and you didn't really care, it was just a bunch of set action pieces that honestly was not as good as it could have been, Whereas in this movie, we talked about the action scenes. Let's go ahead and head straight into the story. This scene, the story, the character development, that was so key to this movie, and that is a testament to not only the direction of the Russo brothers, but also the excellent writing team that made this movie. So this is a very, very character-driven movie, and you could see that from the very beginning all the way to the end. At no moment did you not feel like, these characters matter. And so the story, like I said, right from the get-go, whenever Crossbones, that whole event happens, you are already invested in the movie, and then you are already introduced to what the story is going to be about. I love that scene with Iron Man. That was a wonderful scene where he had the conversation with a mom who lost her son in the last Avengers movie, Age of Ultron, where he was killed in Sokovia, and then which would lead to the Sokovia Accords. And that scene alone, that already gave you a lot of motivation for why Tony Stark is feeling the way he is. And, this isn't just the beginning. Ever since Iron Man 1 and then mostly Iron Man 2, 3, and then Avengers, you see this progression of Tony Stark's characters, how he begins to be affected by this a lot. And then also from the very opening scene where Captain America has to, talk with Scarlet Witch and kind of deal with this situation where those people died, he makes it a point to, he's been through a lot, and you got to remember, he was there like about almost like 50 years ago until he got, frozen. He saw the whole regime, with Hitler and with Hydra, and so he's been in wars, and so he sees it from a way different perspective, and it's more like, in war, there are no non-casualties, there's always going to be casualties, but you got to weigh like a few thousand people versus millions of people dying, and which is what at stake, is what at stake with all these Avengers movies. These are world-destroying events, with the very beginning first Avengers, where the invasion almost happened, to the Age of Ultron, where Ultron, with all his creations were, pretty much going to destroy the world. And so that is where Captain America's perspective comes in. And then as you're going through the story, just those few first 30 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes of the setup did a wonderful job of setting everything up. And then you understand why the characters are making the decisions that do. You understand why there is that conflict between these friends, these basically family members, the Avengers. And so I really like that, because at no point in time was I like wondering why they were doing what they were doing. And that's what I loved about it. As you are going through all these character arcs, you really get a sense of like why, why this would happen, and also like in terms of like in reality, if this was to really happen in real life, this is what would happen. If you had these super metahumans around, governments would have to consider some type of way to police this, because at any point in time, these super powered beings could destroy the whole planet and cause really, really bad things to happen. Okay, and then also, and speaking of characters, the character in this movie were wow. You know, the acting in this movie was top notch, and I really wanted to, focus on two very obvious characters. The first being Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman, if I remember correctly, he does an amazing job as the King of T'Challa. The King of Wakanda. I'm sorry. So he was just awesome in this movie. He really embodied the character of the comic book. He's not the type of character who you would be trading jokes with. He's a very serious person, and he's very regal too, because he is a king. Especially after his father died, now he becomes king of Wakanda, and so he has a lot at stake here. It's just not about him. Although his father being killed by supposedly Winter Soldier, it is a driving motivation for him to do whatever it takes to exact revenge on the Winter Soldier. So once again, there are motivations behind what every character is doing. But at the same time, he has a lot of responsibility to his people in Wakanda. And so that is a whole different dynamic. And it also, like, if you're not familiar with who Black Panther is, just in this movie alone, it sets you up for the actual eventual Black Panther movie. And it makes you, like, want to know more, which is what I love about what this movie does. I mean, it makes you not only curious about the characters and what they're thinking and their motivations, but at the same time, it also makes you care about the characters. And I love that a lot. So even to the end scene where, we're at Wakanda and, the Winter Soldier is frozen again, and then you see parts of where Wakanda is, where T'Challa lives, and it's cool. And then it shows the Black Panther statue at the end. I can't wait till that movie comes out. So, with that being said, Black Panther was awesome, but the character that I was like just wowed by, amazing, spectacular, was obviously Spider-Man. Tom Holland, I don't know much about him as an actor, but just a few, I think he was in this movie total, maybe about 25 to 30 minutes, maybe about 25 minutes. From the scene where they're in Queens, New York, and where he's there with Aunt May with the really, really good-looking Marissa Tomei. I can't believe she's the age that she is. And she plays Aunt May, and then, Tony Stark's there, like, flirting with his aunt. But at the same time, once they get into the conversation with just him and Peter Parker, and then they get into this whole dialogue, man, that was some great dialogue. I mean, wonderful. Not only does it show, like, the young version of Peter Parker, but it also introduces you to the relationship between these characters. And this is like the beginnings of a relationship that which will lead into later movies. And so I love that about it. I mean, I really do. And, the Russo brothers and the writers did a great job in explaining how Spider-Man got his actual suit. And this one makes a lot more sense than any of the other Spider-Man movies where he would create it himself. For it to come from Tony Stark Industries and for it to be advanced, it makes a lot of sense. And I love the jokes about the webbing and stuff. That was just so funny. And all of those characters together, and then eventually when you get to Ant-Man, it just makes the movie. About the only character that I really didn't feel any connection to, and this is like a running theme of most Marvel movies, is the main villain, Baron Zemo. I didn't really connect with him. If he wasn't even in the movie, I don't think the movie would have been any, worse because he wasn't in this movie. However, his motivations, at the end where, I didn't expect it. I mean, I love the way the ending happened. I love the way the villain, his motivations and how he set this all up. And it wasn't the same cliche, I'm going to take over the world, because, the Russo brothers did a great job of, like, making you think that they're going to start up these other Winter Soldiers and then they're going to destroy the world. No, that wasn't the case. And if I remember correctly, I think they were pretty much almost already dead anyway. And so he shot them. And even if he did bring them back to life, there's no way that there would be any guarantees that he would be able to control them. They'd probably kill him anyway. And so I love that. I love how that set that up. And then the big surprise where we find out that Tony Stark's parents were murdered by the Winter Soldier. I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming. But if you go watch the movie again and you go back, all these scenes that the Russo brothers put together, every scene was for a purpose and it was not wasted. So yeah, the characters along with the story, they all mesh really well together. And unlike, Batman versus Superman, I I wasn't lost, I was confused, everything was coherent, and on top of it, I was really genuinely engaged, and I really really loved the characters in this movie, and they served the story really really well. So as you can see, that is my full spoiler reviews. I might have missed a few things, but those are my thoughts on the Captain America: Civil War. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. It was a very deep movie. It had a lot of fun action, and it also sets you up for the eventual Infinity War movies, but also like the upcoming standalone Black Panther movie, Spider-Man movie, and maybe not Doctor Strange because that would be its own separate movie. But eventually, they're all going to come together to battle Thanos and then Infinity Wars. That's going to be pretty awesome. So. If you have seen Captain America: Civil War, leave your thoughts and ideas below. I'd really like to know what you think. And there's a lot to process in here. I think this is a movie that you could go back to multiple viewings and you see something different, which is a mark of a really really great movie. But in terms of where it stands in my favorite comic book movies, I think that, let me see, my favorite has to be the original Avengers, because there was just so much there, and it was something brand new, and I never thought this would happen. So that's pretty much always going to be my number one. My second favorite is Guardians of the Galaxy, because it was so much fun. And this was a tough one, between Deadpool and this. I'm probably going to put this above Deadpool, because although Deadpool was a more fun movie, there was a lot more depth in this movie, and it was also fun as well. And so you could get a lot out of it. And so, yeah, so Avengers, number one. Number two, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number three, Captain America: Civil War. Number four, Deadpool. And number five, I'm not really sure yet. I might reserve that for later. So that's pretty much for this episode. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another episode.
Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.